Hey guys, I'm Mike, and you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the weekly drunk movie review podcast. So I've got good news and I've got bad news. Which do you want first? Let's start with the bad news. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to suspend our Goldfinger series, or at least the video version of it. I'm really proud of the episodes we put out so far, and it hurts me to do this, but it's just become an impossible task trying to put these videos together by myself in the short amount of time before they become irrelevant. This past weekend, for example, I spent literally the entirety of it just in front of my computer putting the data together and writing and recording and editing, and I only had half of an episode to show for it by the time the Oscar nominations came out, making it irrelevant. And I think that means I've bitten off more than I can chew on top of producing the podcast and working full time. I'm still going to make data-driven predictions for the Oscars because it's what I would be doing anyway, and I'll probably post them on our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com, if you still want to check them out. But editing 20-minute video essays for those predictions it's just not possible currently. So I'll revisit the idea next year and hopefully find a solution that works because I really loved making the series. It's just purely a matter of time and feasibility at this point. So anyway, that's the sad news. Thank you, and at the same time, sorry if you enjoyed the series. Now for the good news. Our live show is this weekend, and as you've heard many times by now, we're performing live this Sunday, January 27th at 3 p.m. at South Street Cinema in Philadelphia as part of the 2019 Everything is Awesome Headstrong Comedy Festival. Admission is free, but donations are encouraged to support Headstrong, which provides services to improve the lives of those affected by cancer. Come out early, check out the other podcasts performing with us, participate in the show. It's going to be a great time, and I hope to see you there. Okay, enough jawing. This week we're reviewing Sorry to Bother You with our good friend Alex Berezansky. Enjoy.
Hey guys, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, featuring two guys getting blown out and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
Thank you to Brother Dan on Facebook for that synonym suggestion.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, blown out. That's a good one. But let us delay no further. Betwixt us, for the third time on this podcast, Alex Berezansky returns.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Hey, Alex.
Hey.
You might recognize that voice from Moonlight and the Disaster Artist. We were just talking about how Alex lucks out and gets on for all the good movies to fucking discuss on this podcast.
Yeah.
You haven't had to put any of your fucking work in on, like, Skyscraper or any of the shitty movies that we have to
I didn't even have to go to the theater for this one. Just
watch it right on Amazon or Hulu.
Right? Yeah.
It was Hulu, yeah.
Yeah, Skyscraper's been a go-to all night for bad movie.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. I could go to Rampage, too.
Yep.
Rock pick better. Did you guys see in, like, the news today? He was like, yeah, snowflake culture is actually, it's poison in our, like, society right now. He was like, I don't know what he was doing. The Rock
probably trying to defend Kevin Hart.
I don't know. He did it in an interview, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, people in the future. But I think it was like an interview he did with like Fox or something. Mm-hmm. Like, and they were kind of like, you might be gearing up for politics. And I'm kind of like, gee, oh God. Are we going to see The Rock on like
side?
The ticket? The wrong ticket, I think. I think that's
funny because everybody thought he was going to be like this like liberal hero. And like, oh God, you forgot he was a wrestler.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. Well, that's his fan
He's
base.
He's the guy who like
Why
tweets
not?
with like crying, laughing emojis all the time. He's not on our side.
No, I mean, think about who would vote for him or who's in The Rock's corner.
Who would smell what The Rock is cooking?
Yeah.
Republican.
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised he didn't like come out swinging more for Kevin Hart with that whole like controversy going down. Or maybe he did and it just didn't make news. But like,
I don't know.
I didn't hear him like put his name or his neck. Like Ellen had to defend Kevin Hart more than
I
The
didn't know
Rock
they were
did.
buddies like that.
I mean, yeah, they've done a bunch of movies together. You'd think they'd be boys by now, kind of.
Like
thing.
maybe it is just like that, like
yeah, maybe it is
manufactured
a professional
relationship.
kind of relationship.
I think Kevin would have made a good host. I mean, I understand why,
That's kind of just it is what it is. It's
I don't know if it's not a comment on his hosting ability. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
if you're going to host the Oscars, you got to apologize when some stuff comes out, even if it's like old shit.
Yeah.
God, well, I mean,
It would have been so easy to just be like,
He
sorry,
apologized.
I'm sorry.
He didn't apologize right.
He did it in the way that was like, I'm sorry you were offended by what I said type thing. And like,
yeah. Well, he also used the apology of like, I apologized and, back when I did this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to apologize again, which I get. And I kind of get that, I don't know. I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to get too into the woods.
No, yeah, no,
into the weeds, I mean.
you got to play the game though if you want to host the Oscars.
Yeah, but does he need to host the Oscars? Like, is that even his audience? It's just kind of, it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, it's also like, does he like apologizing because the Oscars tells him to? Sounds like a bunch of like fucking old white people being like, apologize for what you've done, and he being like, oh, I'm sorry, kind of like. That's how I always
apparently
feel, yeah.
the whole thing was like them being like, you should probably apologize.
Right.
And he took it as, he like kind of like misinterpreted it as like, apologize or you can't host.
Oh, no, I think
So
that was the deal, though. I think that was legitimately like they weren't going to keep him on. They gave him an ultimatum where they were like, you can either apologize and kind of make good with this, or I don't think we can have you on the Oscars, which is also a reasonable
But supposedly
request.
they like put out the vibe that they were like, that wasn't what we meant like at all. Like we
Right.
didn't expect him to leave.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
Like
Yeah,
or maybe they worded that way thinking like, who wouldn't apologize for
Right,
this?
when you
Like,
do that,
what
right.
man in his right mind would be like, no,
right. Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
apologize.
Yeah. It's just a weird thing. I don't know. I don't think he needs the Oscars.
He doesn't. The man's got money.
I don't.
Yeah.
He's got a weird movie with Bryan Cranston coming out.
I was talking about that. I was trying to explain what that was to somebody this morning. That was like an incredibly popular movie in France so many years ago. Like so many years ago. Like in the single-digit 2000s, kind of, in France. And it had all sorts of kind of attention from whatever the Oscars are in France, or whatever just award ceremony there is in France.
Les Oscars.
And then I think like the minute that got attention over there with their awards, like the Weinsteins kind of bought the rights to an English version of that, and then they had like Colin Firth kind of attached to it, and they had like Chris Rock attached to it, and they've been through a bunch of whole different things. So one of our friends was like, I think this is Bryan Cranston's like passion project, and I was like, I don't think so. I think he's just like the next guy in line.
Yeah.
And it's just like Kevin Hart's just kind of the next guy in line, and obviously it wasn't even released during Oscar season. I think the studio was like, yeah, this is not good.
I can't tell what it is.
We're not
Like,
going to have the same. Well,
is it like a heartbreaking drama?
yeah, the Intouchables, which is the French version, is it's kind of like this uplifting movie. But again, that was like fucking 2004 or something. Like,
What is this one called?
this one,
I keep wanting to call it like Upgrade or something.
yeah, it's something up. It's like the Uplifter. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Hey, you want to talk about some beer?
Let's talk about some beer.
Let's talk about. I'm talking about French toast. Is it French toast crunch porter?
I believe so. You know, we had to do it to him. If you guys listen to the podcast, you know I'm always copping some Many Young Brewing Company. I was just telling Alex, one of our favorites from them is, I think it's just called Crunch Porter. Oh man, I can smell it.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's good.
It doesn't really taste like
It doesn't taste like that.
French toast crunch. It just tastes like French toast.
Whoa.
I almost wish it was like a
But
little.
I guess I'm
thicker.
getting
The
caught
maple
up
syrup
on-
is quite strong.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm getting caught up on because they call all their ones crunch, right? Like it's peanut butter crunch porter.
I don't know any
mint
other
chocolate
one.
chip. Crunch,
Oh, was that
porter.
crunch? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were all crunch.
Okay.
I think.
I guess
But
that's all
French
their
toast crunch
porters.
is a cereal as well,
Right.
and they're trying to make you think of it with the
French
if you
toast
can see
crunch.
here.
Right. They
right, like
have
that's like the like sister cereal to cinnamon toast crunch. Like they made it where it's like actually shaped like
Right,
French
right.
bread, if you
Yeah.
remember.
They're trying to make
Or
it
French
look like
toast, not
cinnamon
French
toast
bread.
crunch.
You could actually drink one of those at breakfast.
Yeah. Did you try this yet?
I
or-
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe was kind enough.
Yeah, brewed with vanilla, cinnamon, and maple syrup, and it tastes exactly like that. I think this is definitely better. We had like the
Better than
No, nothing. We had a peanut butter cup one that was. I think that's their best. That's their go-to.
The mint one was.
The mint one wasn't good, and then we had something called Swan Dive, and it was like coconut cucumber or something, and I don't think that was that great too.
Oh, yeah.
It's also from this brewery. But yeah, I think this is pretty good, pretty tasty.
Yeah, it's a definite buy.
Many Young Brewing Company calling you out for the fourth time now.
Just gonna keep buying you till you sponsor us.
We made like $40 off you. I think we're just gonna chill.
All right.
But yeah,
Let me read this IMDb description, and then we'll talk about Sorry to Bother You.
let's do it.
In an alternate present-day version of Oakland, telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, propelling him into a universe of greed.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
and then so sorry to bother you. My gosh, I'm just gonna do these notes on the fly because I don't have. It's been a long week for all involved.
Or a short week, depending on how you look on it. Not enough time this
Oh.
week.
Right, yeah. So this is Boots Riley's first film.
Now he's a musician, right?
He is a musician. He's the lead vocalist in The Coop and the Street Sweeper Social Club. There's something else he's involved with too. I think, or maybe it's just for the single of this film. But Sorry to Bother You stars Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, Mari Hardwick, Terry Crews, Patton Oswalt, David Cross, Danny Glover, Stephen Yen, and Armie Hammer. What else was I gonna read here? Oh yeah, Boots Riley describes the film as an absurdist dark comedy with aspects of magic realism and science fiction inspired by the world of telemarketing. The screenplay for Sorry to Bother You was inspired by his own time working as a telemarketer and telefundraiser in California, and his need to put on a different voice to find success. Riley finished the screenplay in 2012 with no means to produce it, and recorded an album with the same title with his band The Coop, inspired by the story. The screenplay was originally published in full as a part of McSweeney's issue 48 in 2014. And then the film score was composed by the Tune-Yards. Riley and The Coop recorded the original soundtrack for the film as well, slated to be released later in 2018. The first single, OHYAY TT.
Yeah, I had to say that on Goldfingers too.
Featuring Lakeith Stanfield, was released July 13th, 2018. And I think that's on the short. Yeah, like you said that you said that for Goldfingers, and I
Oscar
heard you
short
struggle
list.
with that as
Yes.
well. Check out our Oscar prediction series, Goldfingers, on our YouTube.
Episode 3 available now.
But it's on the short.
Maybe episode 4 available by the time this comes out.
Yeah, that's true.
Mayhap.
But all those initials.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Was it OYAHYTT? It's an acronym for something like.
I think it's it's like during the chorus it's like da na 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 Oh yeah, and then it's like, and then I think they use the initials of everything they say.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like HYFR or whatever.
That song was made for the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drinks.
Hell yeah, fucking right.
Hell yeah.
The Tune Yards score you can't find anywhere.
Right.
If I'm mistaken. I don't know if that, because throughout the film they play this this weird like, it's like there's like yodeling in the song.
Oh,
and I thought it was like amazing.
Yeah,
And
I really like that.
I was all over the internet trying to find it. I couldn't find it. I found the Boots Riley's shit, which I didn't care for very much.
Right, yeah.
I like the movie, but I didn't care for his music too much. But the Tune Yard stuff was great. I'm really disappointed I couldn't find that.
Yeah, I haven't even tried to look for it. That stinks. Huh.
Hopefully it's like released at a later date or something. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be like vinyl of it at Urban Outfitters or some shit.
But yeah, I've read just to pop back on one of those notes. That's pretty much it for the Joe notes. You know, like, do you love this shit? Are you high right now? Do you ever get nervous? Are you single? Heard you fucking your girl. Is it true? You getting money? I'm not gonna read the next part. But a lot of reviews, I remember. And we'll get into like why we're reviewing this movie at this point in time right now. But a lot of the reviews when this first came out, I remember they were like, "Oh my god, like, what a film for now! Like, what a film for like the kind of Trump administration, the yada yada yada." And it was like kind of like, oh no, he wrote this during like the Obama administration, and then it was just kind of like the screenplay was published in McSweeney's in 2014. Like I said in my notes and everything. Yeah, it's just like it applies to now, but I think it is. I don't know. I think it's not like it's not super timely.
It's not as pointed as Vice, which we'll get into last week or the week before, depending when this comes out.
Right, but yeah, I think I saw this back in like June or July.
Out in July. July it came out in the theaters because it premiered at Sundance in January, and then.
And I was filling in Alex earlier. I did not think we were going to review this, and I think I talked at length about the essay that Boots Riley wrote about Black Klansman and Spike Lee and everything. I even talk about like one of the scenes in this movie, which I'm sure I'll hit later. But yeah, it's getting to the end of the season, end of our season of 2018 films. We're now in 2019 and everything. And I think we wanted to hit like one more good film now that we've kind of covered everything that we know will probably be up for Best Picture. And then also our own award shows are coming out, and we wanted this to be included in it. I know I wanted it to be included.
Hopefully the last couple episodes of this season are just going to be us being able to grab all the movies we actually did want to watch or review, irrespective of whether they did well at the box office or whether they're going to be nominated for Oscars, so that we can maybe nominate them for Handies, make them eligible. And this was definitely one of those. I know we had a fan on one of our YouTube videos asking whether we were going to, or maybe it was just on our Facebook page.
I'm looking it up right now.
Asking if we were going to review this. And at the time, we were like, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it because it didn't do too well at the box office, and it doesn't look like it's trending too well towards Oscars. Still isn't. It might get that song nom, but that's a long shot. But now we get to review it.
Yeah. Alex, what is your like history with this film? Because when I asked you to review this, you had already seen it twice. Yes. I think. Yeah. Did you see it in theaters, or did it come on Hulu for you?
No. When it was in theaters, I heard about it. It was actually my dad that told me about it.
Oh, really?
And I thought it looked great, but it wasn't playing anywhere near me, so I just kind of waited. I probably watched it for the first time in November, and then I watched it a second time like 2 weeks ago.
Is your dad like a movie dude?
He's a movie dude. He's a movie.
Okay.
He's more of a music dude, but he's a movie dude.
Yeah, your dad's the one who is on Sufjan's label, right? Or used to be.
Yeah, he put out one album on Sufjan's label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asthmatic Kitty.
Yeah, Asthmatic Kitty. Yeah.
That's
The band is Dots Will Echo. Since I don't have anything to plug myself, I'll plug his shit.
Dad's.
That's fucking wild, though.
Yeah, I remember
because
wiling out over that last time.
yeah, I mean, Sufjan's an Oscar nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sufjan performed at the Oscars.
Hey, though, this review goes out to Cameron Reese. She
Thank you, Cameron.
says that I love your guys' podcast. I was really hoping to get a review of Sorry to Bother You before the end of the year. I think you guys would enjoy it. Thanks for a great show.
Ask and you shall receive.
Here it is. Here it is, Cameron. So yeah, thanks so much for that. I don't know. I talked heavily about it, so and here we are reviewing it. It's kind of crazy, just because I was telling Mike again, just because this has kind of been a crazy week and everything. I didn't totally get to re-watch it since it was on over the summer. But this is a film that has very much stuck with me. So I think I can definitely hold my own in this conversation.
And I just watched it this week, so
Whereas I watched Vice
for the first time.
I watched Vice like 2 days ago, and I already kind of forget like what happens in that movie. But I can tell you, like,
As you might remember from our review 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
2 weeks
but this film, it's like scene for scene. I don't know. I love this movie so much. I think, like, spoiler alert, I think this might be my favorite movie of this year still.
You guys both only saw it once?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And why is there did you
I
get-
loved it the first time, and I really liked it the second time. I actually didn't love it as much the second time
Okay.
for some reason. I still think it's a really good movie.
Right. And we can talk about that just because
The cat just walked in.
It's gonna be an interesting episode. They love wires.
oh man.
He has this book right here, How to Toilet Train Your Cat.
It's going to come in handy later.
Mid-episode.
No, but yeah, this
Guys, I gotta take a break.
there's just like this film is I don't know, it just there's no film like that. Like when I saw this, like this was like my what's it called? Like when I saw, did you see Good Time last year? Oh, okay.
No, you kept telling me to see that when I still haven't seen it.
I tell everybody, I often am like, have you heard the good word of Good Time? Like last year all the time. And I don't know, when I saw this film, I was like, Sorry to Bother You, I was like, God damn, there's no other fucking movie like this.
This was
And I
really,
like,
really original. Yeah.
I mean, like, it's
It's drawn from certain influences, like
it's
Michel Gondry is like definitely a huge influence on his style. Am I thinking of the right one?
I don't know. Wait,
Who's
what
the
is-
guy?
That's the Eternal Sunshine, though?
He did that, but he's also. Am I correct? He's the one who did like Be Kind, Rewind, and like. No, I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Who am I thinking of?
This film reminds me of like the combination of like Brazil and like what was that one film, like Idiocracy?
No, it is Michel.
Idiocracy?
Idiocracy. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Michel
Yeah.
Gondry. Yeah.
This film's very Terry Gilliam too. Like it's just
Yeah,
kind of like
I could see that a little
it
bit.
it doesn't like it doesn't feel like polished. It's like a lot of ideas and not everything works, but I think that's also the point of this film. Like it's like obviously you can see like in his music background, like his energy is very Boots Riley's energy is very punk, and it's a very just fucking I'm fucking angry about the state of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of like why I don't know.
Well, and like visually, it has this aesthetic. I think that's what makes me think of like Michel Gondry,
Right.
Especially like Be Kind, Rewind, where like it's not like art film; it's like craft film. It's like
Yes.
arts and crafts, like
Right,
the
yeah.
way things are like thrown together. Like especially the one scene where they're trying to get across that he's like upgrading everything in his apartment, and like,
Yeah.
the TV like unfolds.
That was nice. That was really nice.
Right, yeah.
Like it's a lot of stuff that like doesn't necessarily look the greatest. It's just like very cool in concept and like very unique in its style
Yeah.
through a lot of it. And a lot of it just looks made rather than polished.
Oh, definitely. and just like wider scale, like I was trying to kind of every time I try to explain this film, I'm trying to kind of like compare it to like kind of like dystopian or kind of like counterculture films, but it's like really unlike any movie I've ever seen. The humor is like very intelligent. It has like that race element, and there's it's the first film I've ever accurately seen like portray like code switching and like how black people have to behave for white people. Like it makes
when Steve Lift is asking him to rap at the party, that scene is freaking hysterical.
But it's also like I love that though. I mean, not that, but I love the idea that they present like that. I mean, that's the crown jewel of kind of like this idea. But it's like it makes it so funny that it's like more accessible, and then like even people who aren't like this film, like I've heard like criticism of it. It's like this film's fucking like on the nose, kind of like a little too much. Mm-hmm. But I think that's like kind of like I don't know. I think it kind of needs that because like it makes it funny, and then those people who aren't like really thinking about films, like I think we all do, like will like laugh about that, and then they'll kind of go home and be like, why was like they'll be like, oh, that was funny, but like, oh, why was that funny? Yeah. Or like what about that was that made me laugh, or like it's referencing something. Like
there's like a lot. Like there's a lot going on in this movie.
Almost and too many ideas near the end.
There's some stuff that's like maybe I don't know if too on the nose is the term, but it's just too like it goes too deep into some of like the
third act
themes.
Of the movie is really the only part that I have a slight issue with.
You start losing some of the metaphors at a certain point, but I love so much of the stuff that they just like keep on the surface. Like I like to the point of like the party scene with like the rapping earlier in the scene. They haven't even earlier in the movie. They have an even better scene, I think, when they're at the bar and Jermaine Fowler is talking about like how you make like mac and cheese, and he's like talking about like there's like a black way to make mac and cheese, and Cassius is like, I don't fucking make it that way. Like, that's not how all black people make mac and cheese. Like,
right, yeah.
And it's talking about this sort of like, pigeonholing that happens like within one's own race at the same time.
Right,
like,
yeah.
That like, we don't have to be tied down to like this identity that we've created for ourselves or that other people have put on us at any time. Like,
oh, definitely.
Anyone can be their own person.
I don't know. Yeah, and it's a bunch of stuff like that I don't... I just kind of thought this film was going to be bigger, and it was going to create like an even like bigger conversation than like something like Get Out did, and maybe it wasn't as accessible as Get Out.
I think the problem is that like Get Out is like a really clean like metaphor that follows all the way through the movie. And like you can look at like any part of that movie and be like, oh, that's what that's referring to in our society. Whereas this gets real muddy at parts.
Oh, most definitely. Right.
Like there's parts where I'm just kind of like, is this part of the metaphor, or is this just a fun thing to throw in a movie?
Right. Yeah.
Get Out was pretty straightforward.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. And it was also it was a horror movie, and that those horror movies do numbers. Yeah. It's just kind of like. I get it. I get why Jordan Peele's going to stay with horror films now. Like when he released the trailer for Us. I just kind of...
He put out a new trailer?
Yeah. It's Us, but like it doesn't... I don't see like a clear plot yet, or just like a clear like I was like, I want this to be like
it's
socially involved.
It's like The Strangers... I think there's going to be more than we just coming off in the trailer, because I can even sort of see where he's going, where it's about like looking at yourself and like because it's like remember the movie Strangers from like the 2000s,
right?
It's like that, but if those people were like demented versions of you, like it's like a family of 4, and they keep like all the people that are attacking them are them, just like looking a little bit weirder. So it's definitely going to have some metaphor there about self-reflection, or so there's a million things he could do. I just wished he would have gone into another genre. Like now you like proved you can make like an awesome kick-ass movie. Like,
Right.
just do another one.
I gotta check that trailer out. Get Out was actually my favorite film of 2017.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You'll definitely love this trailer. Then
It looks great, and it looks scarier than Get Out, because I didn't think Get Out was scary at all. I just thought it was a great movie.
it's kind of I mean, I thought Get Out's kind of like a
Probably scarier for black people watching it.
yeah. I thought Get Out was also kind of like a social commentary. I mean, this could be kind of horror-ish near the end, but I feel like it kind of takes the route of comedy. I don't even know how to explain this movie.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That's the only other thing I know Lakeith from. Oh no, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He's really likable too.
Oh, I love him. I didn't like him at all. I didn't like his character at all at first in Atlanta, and then it really grew on me. I do like the kind of like he's kind of like Cassius, but they call him like Cash in this movie. Just kind of like Donald Glover's character in Atlanta is like Ernest, but they call him Ern.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like this like weird like monetary nicknames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard so much this year being like, why isn't anyone paying attention to Lakeith Stanfield and Sorry to Bother You, like, for his performance? And I wasn't super blown away by him in this. Like, I generally like him. I think he does great work, and he's pretty good in this. But like, I don't know. It's just kind of it's a role. Like,
right. It's not the.
and it's like I don't think he even like really knocked it out of the park, because it's such a hard role to pull off, because the tone of this movie is so strange.
Yeah, like he'd be in my top 5, but I think it's just because I love this movie so much. Like I'd love this movie to be more so up for best picture or best screenplay or something. That's not the one thing I'll point toward. But yeah, no, I agree. I didn't hear anybody say that, but I would agree. It's not like
I would almost point to like Stephen Yeun or Ewan Yen.
I think it's
It's Yeun. Like I would probably put him over Lakeith.
Yeah,
I think he's fantastic.
He has a really great performance. This is his best role.
Yeah, supposedly he's in Shoplifters, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't
in
know
like a supporting role somewhere in there.
This is also like, I don't know. There's just like a bunch of things that stood out to me in this movie that I've just never seen in film. I mean, like not since like even the fucking like 70s or 80s have I really seen like a movie with a theme that's like a really progressive movie about like labor and labor rights, kind of. And it's still incredibly important. I mean, that's just kind of like our friend Eric, who was on the Solo episode. I was like, Eric, you need to see this movie. Like, it's really, I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's the perfect movie for like kind of like a labor organizer or whatever. It's got like that kind of fucking momentum in it.
What I do like about like the script is like I think many other movies that like would have tried to take on like capitalism and labor movement and stuff like that would have put their protagonist in a position of like being shit on, and he's part of this like revolution against capitalism, rather than this movie, which is like he's fully bought into capitalism, and he has to like have the switch at the end to like join his friends to save everything. Like,
oh, definitely.
I thought it was great that like when they were all like, that's just such a great twist that when they go in to do their like walkout thing, he gets offered a promotion. It's like, fuck, like if you put yourself in his shoes, like
that's
dude,
that's
like,
what I think made it so brilliant.
As much as I fucking hate capitalism, like
you're like kind of
if
rooting
my boss
for
is
him.
offering me a promotion, I'm like, yeah, I need money. Like,
well, yeah, and it's especially because I mean, the Boots Riley puts in the work. And I mean, we see like a really, I mean, like Atlanta does like a really good job of kind of showing like, man, it's fucking hard sometimes, like poverty, you know, like it's just kind of like, and we see, I mean, you'll see it in like the trailer, even if you watch this film, where it's just kind of like, he's kind of like living in his uncle Terry Crews like garage, and he almost like doesn't even have privacy because the garage door's flying open, and
some
there's
really
just
great visual language in this movie that like isn't even really like it's there, but nobody like says a word about it in the movie. I definitely love when stuff like that happens, but they talk visually so much about how like poverty is like places with like no windows and darkness, and like having money is having like windows and shit. So
Right,
like
yes.
when he's in like the beginning, he's in the garage, which has no windows whatsoever. And then like the call center that they work in, which I mean, that's something that they do in call centers because they want you to like lose track of time, is they don't put windows in there. And then when he gets up to like the second floor, there's windows everywhere. Like it's a fucking like atrium that they're like working
Right.
in. And when he buys the bigger apartment, there's windows everywhere in his like big ass apartment. And then even like, I mean, I don't think this is really a spoiler, but at the end when he like gets to his like middle ground sort of life, like there's one window in there and it's like, all right, like I'm back where I started, but I'm a little happier now. Like
Right.
there's light coming in here.
No, definitely. No, but I agree with like this film also. I mean, it definitely has that kind of like racial idea in here, and it has that kind of labor idea in here. But I think like one of my favorite themes, I mean, especially like earlier in the film, it's kind of has like this idea. It represents this idea of like what is selling out, you know, like what do you owe yourself versus like what do you owe everyone else. And I think, yeah, like just to return real quick to like when I was talking about the whole Black Klansman thing, basically what this film does so well, and I think what Black Klansman does so bad, is just like they give him like a valid reason to choose like a path that he does, like validation and independence and everything. Like he saves his like the things that he's doing, like he helps prevent like his uncle from joining like the worry-free workforce and everything. And Boots Riley shows us why Cash, you know, makes the decision, as opposed to like, you know, Spike Lee, where it's like, wait, why is he joining the police force? You know, like I don't know. It's like the first scene in Black Klansman. I don't know, there's not really any backstory or exposition that, you know, happens in like the rest of the movie of Black Klansman. It's just like, it's not historically accurate at all. So I don't know. It's just like, they do the work in this movie. And again, there is like that visual language. I wanted to get at some other point. I was just completely lost sight of what I was trying to say.
Like I think there's such like strong stuff in here, and I think the movie kind of like shoots itself in the feet a few times.
Okay.
Like one of the biggest examples I can think of, I think it thinks it's way funnier than it is, and there's times where it tries to throw humor in there that doesn't really work at the expense of like this anti-capitalist message that's like really sinking in, and then they'll try to do something funny, and it's like no, like stick with what was working in this movie.
Okay,
like,
right, yeah.
You know, like it didn't need to be laugh out loud funny. We could just be quirky, and you could have this like funny sort of visual style that's going on.
There
with,
were
like, the
a couple
colors.
jokes that felt really thrown in there, like
There's-
when the STD or something.
That was the point I was going to bring up, because
Okay,
he's
right,
like Stephen Yeun's like giving this like speech about like, you know, we need to like make enough money so that like we can like, you know, get drunk one night and then, you know, go to the doctor, and like before that he's talking about like, oh, you know, like I don't want to, like we don't need to be eating like, you know, cup of noodles every night, and like just like stuff that was like speaking to me as someone who's like definitely been going through some hard financial times recently. And I'm like, hell yeah, like I'm sick of eating ramen and shit.
Right.
But then he like goes into that, like that, like he ends up like trying to make it super specific, like, you know, we don't want to like, we want to be able to go out and get drunk and not have to go see the doctor and have the doctor tell you have like chlamydia or whatever, and
Right.
and then it's like turns into like a
Cheap
crickets
jokes. Right, yeah.
situation, and it's like you were onto something there. Like he was giving this like legitimately motivating speech about like fuck capitalism, and you know everyone has the right to like live a happy life regardless of what type of job they're working. There's a few other, I'm trying to think of some of the other instances of when they just like tried to make something funny, and it was like no, this didn't need to be that funny. Like
Right. It's confusing. It's kind of a confusing movie, and part of me wants to be like, oh, I'm sure that was the studio, but on the other hand, this movie is like very obviously like somebody making a movie for the first time, and like really almost like not even having notes from somebody who has made a movie before. Like structurally, this movie like is completely unique, for better or for worse. I mean, there's just like random like crossfades, and there's like very non-conventional pacing, and there's like very extreme like shifts in tone, and it's just I don't know. I felt like, again, that felt like part of this movie's like biggest downfall for me, but that also felt like very charming to me. It was just like I was saying before, like it's this film at one point, like especially during like the second and third act, becomes nearly impossible to predict.
When they introduce the half man, half horse thing until that point in the movie, it's like there's nothing too far-fetched from reality. I mean, it's exaggerated, it's stylized, it's surreal, but that's like a huge leap.
But even all these like failed ideas.
Spoiler alert from here on out. And if you haven't seen it, just ignore what Alex said, because it makes no sense in the movie or outside of it anyway.
I would imagine anyone watching this review has seen the movie. Hopefully.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah,
I did see like somebody at South by or Sundance. I was so surprised because like before the film had like a wide release, they said something like, oh, Minotaur or whatever, and I was like,
now that I'm thinking about it, I did see some like I had no frame of reference to apply the memes that I was seeing about it to the movie.
It's on Hulu now, but if you're one of the first people who sees this film, why would you say something like that? Just kind of like, it was just kind of like, why would you do that, man? But yeah, it's been out since like the summer now. But yeah, spoiler alert. But just I don't know. There's just a bunch of like, this does not look like somebody's like first film, but like we talk about, this looks like somebody's first film. This is their baby. It's almost a perfect film. It's like Ex Machina or something. It's just kind of like, wow, like this looks like a first film where it's just kind of like, oh wow, this person doesn't know how to make a film, but that's like very refreshing in a way.
Yeah, like I think he gets the structure down pretty well on like a macro level, because I think there's definitely a great sense of like characters start in one place, they have wants and needs, they go through everything. Maybe they just end up finding out that the things that they wanted and needed were different, and or it was right in front of them type of thing. But yeah, it has some very strange pacing at times, and you can definitely tell that he's like trying to sort of like buck tradition at times. Like definitely like just straight up like the time code in the movie that like the twist happens is like very strange. Like the movie goes on for a long time, and then you're just kind of like, okay, now it's something totally different now. For the last like half hour of this movie, like it seems like it's sort of like winding down, and then it hits this twist, and it's like, and then we're going back up again.
Granted, it does start feeling like very subtly more horror-esque. Before it gets to that point, like when he's walking into Steve Lift's office.
Well, that's why I didn't. I think
that was because I had heard so much stuff. Sorry to interrupt, but I heard so much stuff on like Twitter about like, dude, like, Sorry to Bother You takes like a real turn at the end of the movie.
Oh, really?
And me and my girlfriend Rowan were watching on like Hulu, and like I just kept waiting for like, when is this turn? When is this turn? Then when he starts walking down that hallway, I was like. Like, Rowan, get prepared. It's gonna get real weird right now. I was this is definitely where it's switching.
That was probably one of my favorite sequences when he's going there after like the party's like winding down, and what's his name? The dude
Hammer.
The dude with the eye patch.
Oh no!
I can't remember. He's not. There's like they always talk about Hal Johnson, but he's not Hal Johnson.
He's like walking in, and there's just like a giant like orgy going on.
He's credited as Mr. Blank, but in the movie he's Mr. and then they bleep out his name whenever he says it.
Yeah,
right.
For some reason,
and that's the only time you hear him speak without his white voice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, can we talk about the white voices thing? I really love the concept of it. Like, I think it has a lot to say about a lot of things, but I really don't like the white voice performances in this movie.
What's you mean, like David Cross
and Patton Oswalt? Like, I think they're like really playing it up way too much, to a degree.
That's their natural voices, right? I was a big Mr. Show fan.
They're like I wish they had done it as their natural voices, but they're doing it definitely like reading, knowing that it's going to be a white voice overlaid over an African American mouthing the lines.
Well,
right? Like they're.
Well, yeah. But I mean, this film is very cartoonish in itself, kind of.
I felt like they could have picked white actors for those voices that, like, it would have been like semi-believable that was like a white voice that someone was doing. But it's also hard to gauge because, like, even in the confines of this movie, like, I don't know if they're just trying to cover their tracks, but like when they're at like the bar the one time and Lakeith Stanfield's character starts doing it for the first time, everyone's like, whoa, that was weird. Like, it sounded like you were literally dubbing someone's voice over your voice. Right, yeah. Like, I can't tell if that's them trying to cover their tracks or if that's supposed to be an actual conceit of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Is that they're literally dubbing over their voices when they do it. Rather than just putting on a white affectation.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the exact history. From my, like, very, again, kind of dull memory of, like, reading about this film after I'd originally seen it over the summer, and now it is the next year. I remember, I think their, like, audio engineer or something originally did all the white voices because he's just some white ass guy, you know. And then I think there were like rumors that like Steve Buscemi was going to do like one of the white voices or whatever. And then I think eventually they had David Cross and Patton Oswalt kind of like come into the picture or whatever.
Then I think they had someone from the crew do Danny Glover's.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, someone different does Danny Glover's.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think white voice is about sounding like white. I don't know.
Sounding like you don't have a care in the world.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's just like sounding carefree, which is like it
definitely sounded like David Cross was playing it up like, oh yes, my good sir, type of like white voice.
You sound like Tobias, kind of like, but almost even more cartoony. But I don't know. I don't know.
It is a hard thing to do, and this is a first-time director. Like, that's a hard thing to like have someone, especially if they didn't know that Patton Oswalt and David Cross were going to do the voiceover.
Right.
Like, so then, like, it's one thing if they know that in advance. So then, like, on set, like Lakeith and Omari Hardwick, like, can be like acting out the lines like in a way that would definitely lend itself more to Patton Oswalt and David Cross's voices, but they weren't meshing for me. Like, it just kind of like took me out of the experience every time they talked. Like, and again, because they didn't make it super clear, like, is it supposed to seem weird and overdubbed, or is it supposed to like mesh and they're just trying to cover their tracks in like a meta type of way?
I think it's supposed to seem weird and overdubbed because I feel like that's the style of the movie. At least that's how I took it. When I first saw the movie, I didn't really know anything about it. I had no idea it was like Patton Oswalt or David Cross or whatever. It was until afterwards. And then when I found out it was David Cross, I was kind of like, is that on purpose? Because like in the 90s, I don't know if you guys have ever watched like this YouTube clip or his stand-up. I went through like a big phase of just like listening to David Cross's stand-up when I was in college, when I first discovered Arrested Development. And he would do this thing where he had like a really famous bit in the 90s, David Cross, where he would like hold his throat like this, and he would read like excerpts from this like black man like self-help book or just like how to pick up chicks kind of book called like In the Search of Good Pussy. It was like it was like a bestseller kind of in like the 90s when he was doing this, but he would hold his throat and he would do black voice. And I was kind of like, is this a play? Like, does Boots Riley kind of like reversing this kind of like? My God, if anyone wants to look this up on YouTube, search like David Cross in search of good pussy, and it's incredibly offensive. It would not go over well today. It's David Cross doing black voice.
See, because I didn't know about that, and like picking Patton Oswalt and David Cross just kind of made sense to me,
right?
Because they can do that like stereotypical white man voice.
I knew it was David Cross the second I heard it. I didn't know it was Patton Oswalt until after the movie.
Okay, they just sound like white dads, like, you know, like and like nerdy white dads at that too.
But yeah, I do love the idea that it is kind of like, hey man, it's not about the actual sound of the voice. It's about like sounding carefree, and like that's, you know, because that's like an actual like.
Well, that's why I wish they wouldn't have leaned so hard into like. Again, like it's not about sounding white. It's about sounding like you don't have a care in the world.
Lakeith was doing that original like imitation when he put his
that's
nose
what I feel
in.
like
He was
David
like, no,
Cross
it's not sounding all
like.
nasally. But
they definitely could have picked someone who sounded white and carefree without sounding like a nerd. Because that's not like the lines he's delivering. Like the actual words he's reading aren't like super nerdy things usually. Like,
well, that's like
he's trying to relate to people who have money. Like, and it usually has to do with like money when he's saying a lot of this stuff.
I mean, there's definitely
like I got to go to play this like fancy game of whatever, of like cribbage or whatever he calls it.
Oh right, yeah. There's definitely a specific voice that the direction is aiming for in this movie, because Detroit has like her own white voice as
who
well.
does hers?
And it's what's her name?
British.
Yeah, it's what's her name from Baby Driver. I can't remember.
Lily James?
Yeah, it's Lily James. Mamma Mia too. Mamma Mia Tutu. But I thought that was like funny too, because it's like white and British, but she's in like the art scene kind of. And
so
like
I'm
that's
just looking
what
at the cast right now.
I didn't realize. Was that was dubbed?
Yes.
See, I didn't even realize that. I thought that was her real voice, and she was just, putting on this show. She.
I was on and off, like I thought the dub was pretty good, because sometimes I didn't realize it was like being dubbed the first time.
I didn't realize that was. I mean, I shouldn't have realized because I've never actually seen a picture of her. I've just always heard the name in comedy Kate Berlant, but that's who the Diana Debauchery is.
Right.
It was really funny in this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
She seems like she should be in like Office Space. Though in this movie, like, because at that point they're just kind of like parodying like office culture and like
definitely
HR reps, and, like bosses trying to be like cool with you.
Yeah, but speaking of, while I'm on the subject of Detroit, I kind of wish I understood Tessa Thompson's character a little more. Yeah, like
part of it.
Did you get that? I wish she had a little more agency, like kind of, but then also I was really lost. Like, I mean, there's like the scene where she's explaining her art installation, and Cash just kind of wants like a hit of weed, and like so her voice just becomes like distant, and like they put some sort of audio effect on it, I think, until like, until he like smokes or whatever. But then they have the actual scene of her doing her like live performance art scene.
Which
and
I really hate when people do like when they want to make someone like an artist in a movie. They're like, oh, they're gonna do like a live performance art installation. Like, how many people are actually doing that in real life in the world?
I mean, there's some, but like I think
But how many more like musicians and like filmmakers do you know, as opposed to someone creating not only visual art but like physical art, like physically painting and renting out spaces to put stuff out, and then on top of that doing like like avant-garde like physical performance art, like.
Definitely.
I feel like it shows up way too much in movies compared to how much it actually exists in real life.
I mean, if you go into the art scene, though, you're gonna find that person. And
right, but there's not that many people that are familiar with the art scene, and every filmmaker ends up putting like the art scene in movies somehow.
That's true, but I mean, like,
it just ends up becoming unrelatable to me at some point.
Right, like, but I also feel like that had purpose, and this is my reading of that scene, is that like that didn't make sense purposely, and then they do kind of like fuck with her voice when she's explaining the purpose of it on purpose, and then when that's actually happening, it looks like ridiculous, and I think that's meant to show like, oh, like even kind of the person who is good in this film is just as ridiculous, kind of like almost as like what Cash is doing, like who's turning his back on like everything he believes, kind of like, you know, like we were talking earlier, like in the media right now, like the alt-right looks fucking ridiculous, but like all you have to do is like kind of like sign into Twitter to be like, oh god, the left looks, you know, like the left is kind of like cringeworthy too.
They did a white voice for her during the actual performance. Like I liked it that she had to do the white voice to like sell
right,
it, like when she's walking around talking to people, and like it's cut pretty well when like it's when Cash just walks in and he's seeing like the wine bottles there and like the cheese and stuff, and like that's definitely like, this is not us, like,
right? Yeah,
and her having to walk around talking to all these like white people with like money to get them like interested in everything, that made sense to me. But then when she's on stage, like her whole performance is about like the African like struggle, and like to do that with like a white voice didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I lost the metaphor there.
I think she's continuing to try and sell. I mean, I think she's painting and or performing, or just, you know, writing the performance as a black woman, but then white people come in and she has to make it accessible for them to understand, or I don't know, to make them want to buy. I mean, the same way that Cash kind of has to act white to sell something to the white people he's talking to, you know? Like, it's just kind of like, I don't think anybody goes unchecked in this film. I think everybody kind of looks equally
probably
ridiculous.
Make an argument about, like, in the same way that there was definitely, like, there was, like, that like, brand of, like, white person that, like, saw Get Out and, like, got like way too like woke about it, like where they ended up like being like a meta version of like the dad in Get Out,
right?
On the outside of the movie. Like I feel like there's definitely something like that maybe Boots Riley is trying to get across, where like there's a white person, a type of white person that's gonna watch a movie like this and be like, oh, and it's so important for the black experience,
right?
And that's kind of what her art installation is like, oh, like the African like diaspora and experience and all that, and like, you know, it's something that like white people definitely love to be like, oh yeah, it's so important and cool and whatnot, and you know, it's like one of their favorite charity causes or whatnot. So I don't know. I feel like he would probably have some sort of explanation like that
definitely.
For it. That now that I'm thinking about that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But it's not as clean.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I just wish this movie would be cleaner with the metaphors.
I mean, it's I wish I could clean some of this up with like, if I could take like a snipping tool and cut out kind of like the whole fucking soda can plot line, and he tries to have some sort of commentary on meme culture, and I was kind of like, what does this have to do with anything?
I hate when movies try to do memes. I'm like, this would not be a meme. You don't know what is funny or what would be a meme.
It's just kind of like, it's also like the Tessa Thompson's like romantic interlude. Like she's not dating, like they're on a break with like between her and Cash or whatever, and then she's with the Steven Yeun character. I was just kind of like, I don't totally know what this is accomplishing. It's just kind of like,
it felt a little forced.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, like I could leave this on the cutting room floor, honestly. Like movies do that all the time, where they'll have like little things like that, and they kind of like, but again,
see, I think what I don't like about that is the fact that her and Cash just get back together, and like you were saying before, where like the Detroit character is kind of like stripped of a little bit of her agency. I think the fact that she gets back with Cash is very big evidence of that, right? Because it's like they do have this great scene where
like he's kind of getting like a little jealous when he finds out, and she's kind of like, well, like we were broken up, like,
right.
And then like even when he's like hatching like all his plans to like do whatever, she's like, oh, this doesn't mean we're back together, like no, we're done, like we broke up, like. And at that point I was like, oh yeah, like that's kind of a fresh and good perspective to have on things like that. But then he does some big like grand anti-capitalist thing, and she's like, oh, my hero. I'm gonna kiss you romantically and we'll be back together again. And like, I don't know, I feel like the movie could have been smarter than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I hate that movies that like so much of like cinematic moments ends up being tied up in like, oh, and the grand kiss and the lovers are back together again,
right?
Like,
where everything else has been unconventional.
We really have not explored a whole lot of platonic friendships in movies, and I hate that we are always so unwilling to do that, because when we do, it works out great, I think. Like, I don't know.
It's just kind of like I'm just thinking of like all the things I would cut. The back room of the club, like that scene.
I like that a lot.
I like it, but it's just like I don't know if that pays off.
That felt the most like first film scene to me. Like I can see myself writing a scene like that,
right?
And then not having the balls to like cut it out, even though it does like nothing for the movie, like. Because it's not really advancing anything at that point, right? Like it's just
like maybe the party scene, but
like it's like I think maybe his defense of it is probably that it's establishing his character, where he's someone that like wants to be places and wants to get places, but on the inside is really someone that doesn't enjoy being out and like is kind of a loner and doesn't really belong in those places. Like he wants to be in the VIP because it's cool and important. But then he gets in there, people are like pushing him around and knocking his drink over, and it's an annoying time. So he probably thinks it's like a really important character building scene, but you could really do without it. It's a darling that needs.
I like that scene.
It's a darling.
You could do without it, but that made me laugh. That was one of my favorite. Well, it was probably one of my favorite parts. Honestly, that made me laugh really hard. Yeah.
No, I like it a lot too. But I was just kind of like, what does this do for the movie too? But I do in the back of my head, I was kind of like, maybe this does something for the kind of party scene you brought up earlier. And I kind of have a funny story. I saw this in theaters, and I feel like that party scene again, where Armie Hammer, who at first I didn't like, and then kind of grew on me, because I feel like it's kind of just good casting. Like, he has that kind of like square jaw, and like, he's got that like masculine voice, and he's just like American, kind of just handsome dude.
He's a charming psychopath.
Yeah, he's like a frat boy.
Get me a fucking peach, man, because I want to fucking.
I'm 6'4" and there's two of me.
Yes, but yeah, where he encourages Cash to kind of like, hey, like, kick a freestyle for us, or whatever the fuck he says.
You could rap. Yes, you could totally rap.
Right, yeah. And that was such, I don't know, I definitely think that's like such a standout scene that doesn't.
It's the saddest scene in this whole movie.
Oh no, and it doesn't require like a fucking like horseman to get across a point.
I think that's when the metaphor is like the most pointed, and like me and Rowan like watching that scene, like it's weird because it's like funny on the surface, but it's one of those scenes where like the metaphor is working so well that you get it, and it just keeps going on. Where he's like, you should rap. You could totally rap. I'm asking you to rap now. And it just keeps getting more awkward, and you're just sitting there like, oh no, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Like,
this way that we want African Americans to be.
Right. The way that we want them, or I don't know. And again,
like this like performative nature that they need to put on to be accepted.
Right. And I don't know. And then there's just it's a horrifying scene, because it is like an African American standing on stage and white people chanting the N-word at him, and that's just like such a like devastating scene to see. It's just,
and I love the fact that like it starts with him trying and failing to rap.
Right.
Because he's, trying to like sort of be himself, and like that doesn't work, and they only really buy into it when he
using the crutch of like what he knows would work. And again, it is the performative nature of, or just like behaving the way you think white people expect you to behave and everything. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. It just reminds me of just, I think it was like during like, what's it called? Like one of like Donald Glover's like first like stand-ups or whatever, or like when he was really first starting to like pop off, like when he did Weirdo or whatever, and he was talking about being at like a Kanye West concert in like Texas, and maybe he was at like South by or something, and it was just kind of like he was like using a metaphor earlier where his mom would like buy them like Cocoa Puffs or something, but she would like mix it in with Kix or something, and then he went to like a Kanye concert, but he was in like Texas, so he was like, I felt like the Cocoa Puff in like the group of Kicks, and it's just kind of like, and then like I don't know what song he was doing, but it would just say the N-word after every kind of like after every I don't know, like line that Kanye would say, and they would like kind of like all say it back to Kanye, and then like Donald's like, after a while, it felt like they were like kind of like turning into me and pointing at me and saying the N-word kind of, and it was just kind of like, I can say this because of like what's going on right now, and like that's the setting, and like you're just a part of it. It was just like, it reminded me of that, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just weird, and it's just like that also has to be what it's like to be like some sort of like touring hip-hop act where you just go night after night and you just perform these fucking white kids.
There was that issue with Kendrick where he brought the white girl on stage.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he brought the white girl up on stage, and he wanted her to do what is it?
Mad City.
Yeah, Mad City, and that's like half of the song. And it was like a confusing thing for like a teenage white girl to be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna do it, like it was just, I don't know. She didn't even think to like censor herself, and then he stopped her, and it was just like, it was such a train wreck of like expectations.
I do kind of wonder what Kendrick was thinking when he asked her this.
Like, did you kind of like set her up, or like, not that she should know better,
it was probably
but
just
also,
a planned part of the set, and he didn't think about what type of person he was pulling up on stage.
Right, yeah.
Like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah, and then it puts him in an awkward position.
Yeah. Well, the headline said like he embarrassed fan. I thought he was pretty polite about it. He was just like, definitely. You got to bleep the word out. You can't say it.
Right, yeah. And yeah, that puts him in such an awkward position where it's like, Jesus Christ, do I stop her right now? Like, this is weird and uncomfortable. I mean, I saw this in a very crowded theater in like Doylestown Regal Theater, and Doylestown, the town I live in, is predominantly white, and there's a bunch of like even like older white people too. And starting that with that scene, people like white ass old people start walking out and like leaving in droves during that scene, and then by the time, and then like the horse scene doesn't come long after that, or just I think also, he sees the horse, and then also the almost like employee instructional video about like the horse people. Like white people are just getting up and getting the fuck out of there. I was like, it went from a full theater to like me and maybe like 3 other people.
Wow.
This was, I've never been in a theater like that. Like, that sounds like a film fest or something, where it's just kind of like, oh, my time's more important. I have other things to see or whatever. Besides, like, my mom told me about, like, when she first saw, like, Boogie Nights in theaters. And she was like, people just start leaving in droves.
I've never been in any movie theater where, like, a lot of people started walking out.
This was my first and only film that this has ever happened in. I was like, man, this must be really hitting something inside of people, like where it's just kind of like, or it's kind of grotesque at points of this movie, which, if you're fucking like 80 years old and white, you're just kind of like, I don't know if I want to subject myself to like another act of this, you know.
I also just remembered when you brought up the like employee like training video.
Yes,
that's definitely why I thought of Michel Gondry, is because he says like directed by Michel Gondry on that video.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember like thinking of that during that, and then I saw the like employee training thing, and I was like, oh yeah, like now he's straight up just throwing a bone. Like here's where my inspiration came from for this like style.
But
I'm not a big fan of the television show that I got the shit kicked out of me thing. That's where I don't know what that's going.
I thought that was funnier than the whole Coke can to the head thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Coke can thing is like awful. I hate when they show the actual like video that goes viral and it's got like animation sounds like boink dong. It's like, oh god, like spend a little more time on the internet. Boots.
Just kind of trying to get that like Tosh.0 or like, you know, I was even in like just like kind of waiting in the lobby of like a Pep Boys or something the other day, and it was just kind of like, oh god, I didn't realize like there are actually like news segments now where it is kind of like they'll play like a viral video and like add like just the dumbest fucking sound effects where it's kind of like, this guy got into a car accident. It's like, Jesus, is this what news is now? Like can't picture Kelly and Regis doing this or something.
Yeah, but the TV show, I don't know. Like, is that supposed to be an actual commentary on TV? And what is the correlation?
A commentary about our obsession with, you know, watching people be like humiliated, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that definitely fits in with like the theme of.
Again, like
it's true.
I just wish everything in this movie was cleaner because, because it's happening through like the TV like medium.
Right.
I'm just kind of like, what show is like? Is this like a critique of Wipeout? Like what other show is like that?
I don't know if it's a critique of, but you said Tosh.0. That's I think that's kind of a good example. That's not
really like,
or just like ridiculous,
super popular.
Like ridiculousness or something. I mean, those are the Tosh.0 is one of the biggest like most,
right now.
Not right now, but like I mean, he wrote this in 2012. You know,
yeah.
So yeah. But
they take clips on that show where people get really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
There was one clip where a person actually died, and they showed that on Tosh.0, and he's like telling jokes like, this fucking guy just lost his life, and you're airing this on national television?
Right. And
making fun of it? Like,
yeah. And I do still think that's a gigantic part of our culture, is just kind of like, let's replay this clip of this person making a mistake, or just kind of, I don't know. It's very like,
but even if that is I think that's muddying everything else. Like this movie just needed to be more pointed,
right?
About like save that sort of message for another movie about something else.
Yeah,
you know? Like just stick to the capitalism thing, and like I'm even fine with like I think they're intertwined, like capitalism and like Black identity. Like
definitely,
I think are two great messages to have in here. And when you start throwing some of this other stuff in there, and it's like, whoa, okay, like, it's a lot.
It is also one of those things where I don't know if Booth Riley knew he was. I mean, is he still going? I mean, I kind of don't know the extent of like the success of this film either. Where it's just kind of like, am I gonna make another film? I don't know. I'm gonna fucking leave it all out on the screen though. Like, you know, like again, it was also like I talked before. Like it's a very like, you know. It's just a very fucking like punk film where it's just kind of like, I'm just gonna fucking throw everything up here and what sticks kind of. It reminded me at times of like kind of like the Eric Andre show where it's just kind of like chaos. But you know, where I've heard like an interview with Eric Andre where it's kind of like, why are the episodes, you know, 10 minutes or whatever? And Eric Andre's instead of like 30 minutes, and Eric Andre's like, I don't know, like, when have you heard a punk song that's like 3 or 4 minutes, you know? It's like a fucking minute-long song. Like, that's what punk is. Like, it's just, you get in, you get out. Yeah.
I think a like sequence that like shows Boots Riley's like what's the word? Just an inexperience with like pacing and like cutting a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's either that or it's him knowing what good pacing and cutting is and trying to buck the trend, because he definitely does do that at times in this movie. But when Cassius starts selling well at what is the place he works for?
Regal View.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Regal View.
Yeah. Which I just can't help but think of Regal Theaters when I hear that. I was like, is that supposed to be a dig? But when he first starts selling well, and he like does like the like high five sequence with like
that was funny.
But it goes on so long, and like I part of me honestly believes that it's probably like Boots Riley like found a song that he really wanted to cut that sequence to, and then he was just kind of like, well, the song's going on this long and it sounds weird to fade it out, so you're gonna have to film like 20 more high fives.
That's the same song he used for the credits, right?
So that might be the
I'm pretty sure it's the same song he used for the credits, but he was rapping in the version for the credits.
And
my biggest issue with that was the very first rap lyric in his song is him saying, "I'm Boots Riley." Which is weird for like a movie that you wrote and directed to like play a song you made, and the very first lyric
I'm Steven Spielberg. Welcome to Warhorse.
Watch me make a movie like Alfred Hitchcock. That made me think of something, and then I just totally lost it with that rapping thing.
Yeah, you were talking about the montage when he was.
I do like the montage a little, though. I didn't mind that.
Like I've even heard, but it just like it's like you get the joke, you're laughing with it, and then it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. It does go on a little
more.
Yeah,
I get that.
Like, okay, like again, like it's just a little bit of like, is that inexperience or is that him like knowing that like it didn't need? There's nothing new being added here. Mm-hmm. It's like.
It went on just maybe slightly a little too long.
It started to feel like almost like a Tim and Eric or like Eric Andre sketch where like that's their thing. It's like just keep it going uncomfortably long.
You know what I liked, even though it also went on probably a little long, is when he first got promoted to a power caller and he's walking in and him and his buddy like get in each other's face and they're just like complimenting each other.
I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great year. You smell good, man. What is that? Oh, I remember what it made me think of. Because in that sequence, he like cycles through all like different outfits that he's wearing, and he just keeps like repeating outfits. And I thought that was like pretty great attention to detail. Because like again, like most movies would just be like, well, it's a new scene, he's got to have a new outfit. But this is a movie about like poverty and inequality, and like yeah, you wear the same fucking outfit. So like we see him with that like sweater and like button down shirt underneath that he wears a few times in this like. Because sometimes you only have like 3 outfits you can wear to work.
No, but
he's got a great style in this movie. Like especially when he like gets promoted. Like I don't know if that's Boots Riley personally dressing everything or who does the costuming for this, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
He looks cute.
Mad cute.
Look mad cute.
I mean, he's just a good looking dude too.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing, and I mean again, that's just like when people were walking out. But I think like really, there was such an experience watching this in theaters because like when Cash goes through the like the olive colored door instead of like the jade colored door or whatever, and he sees like it's a fucking horse human who's crying out in pain or whatever. People in my theater, like, again, who were just older people, like, it wasn't even, like, teenagers were like, oh, shit! Like, it was just, like, old people being like, ah! like really lost their shit, yeah.
I didn't know until the second watch. One of those horses was actually voiced by Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah. I read that, too, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that was gonna, like, I knew it was gonna get weird. I was expecting some kind of, like time travel or time bending or something like that was going to happen, like something that was going to change my whole perspective, or like maybe it would like really switch genres, which it didn't really. Like it introduced a feeling for a little bit, but then it kind of just went back to the old style after that. Which was nice because it made it even more of a twist for me, because it was like a twist on the twist that I was expecting, where I was just kind of okay, like there's going to be something going down in there and it's going to lead to whatever sort of like, I almost kind of thought maybe the movie would turn like super meta and like break the fourth wall or something like that, just because everyone said it was going to get crazy, and then the fucking half horseman falls out of the stall and like we watched it like literally right in there, and like that happened, and like I literally like stood up and like looked as close to the TV as I could. I was like, what am I seeing right now? Like, what the fuck?
What did you guys think of like once the credits started, you got like 2 seconds in, and then I had that thing with Steve Lift and Lakeith showing up to his house as the horse.
Oh, I hated that.
Oh, yeah.
I truly hated that.
I wasn't crazy about that.
Because I thought it had such a really nice ending, like in the traditional sense, like I was talking about before, where like character has wants and needs in the beginning of the movie, and then he goes through his whole arc, and then he sort of comes to like a nice resolution, and it's almost like a twist ending on like, you know, he thought he wanted to get to like the top of whatever, but he found his happiness somewhere else. And there's a nice little window in the garage now. Like there's these nice visual messages going on, and he gives his car away, and everything was like so neatly tied up. And then it was like, oh, I'm gonna go fucking kill like that guy now.
It was funny, but you could have even put that, like, even if you waited till the credits were over, that might have even been a little better.
But I didn't like the like. Him actually turning into horse, I guess, really, like, just totally ruining the happy ending that was there.
Right. I mean, on like, to play devil's advocate to like my own opinion, like where I was just kind of like, I don't know if I like this, like in the sense of a movie where it is also kind of like, I don't know, man, you can't choose what you're born into, and you can't choose what kind of like revolution you're a part of, kind of like you kind of don't get to choose a happy ending as well. And it felt like it was just, it worked into like the commentary of the entire film and everything, especially because Cash kind of got to just kind of like skip out on like the whole like union strike and all this other stuff. And it seems like he kind of like, he went through some shit, but like he ultimately prevailed like a lot of the movie. I mean, aside from just struggling in the beginning, and the end was just kind of like, psych, fucking struggle's never over, motherfucker. Like, you're the horse now. And it's just kind of like, if this is the only way that you can care about like continuing the fight, then that's what's going to happen and everything. But again, as a structure for a movie,
I think it gets, I don't know if I even really buy into it in the metaphorical sense of it. I mean, the horse metaphor is like a whole weird thing to get into.
Workhorse is a little on the nose.
Yeah, but I think it's like, because he definitely tries to turn it into like what's the millionaire's character, Steve Lift is talking about, like, oh yeah, and like they can like develop their own culture and like their own like stuff, and like it's definitely, the horse thing is about race more than it's about subjugation of poverty.
Right.
I think
he's building a new slave race.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's the metaphor is like loosely there. I can like sort of grasp it. I just don't know if I can like totally verbalize it, but it has something to do with like I don't know, like creating like maybe like culture is like forced on races by like the races in power, I guess. Like, and
wait, what was that?
Because like he's trying to like manufacture this like culture,
okay,
for the horses, and I didn't know if that was trying to get into some weird metaphor about like I guess the way that like racism has like pigeonholed African Americans, and like again, like it makes the whole metaphor muddy and sloppy, and I start to lose it there with the horse thing. And then I feel like it doesn't make sense, because like the movie comes to a conclusion, and then it's like, oh, and then 4 months later you turn into a horse no matter what, like,
right,
even though you beat the system. Like,
yeah,
that's what it muddies the metaphor, and then it muddies its own muddied metaphor already even further, for the sake of a little like punk rock like post note to the movie.
Right, yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah, I don't know. It was just very extreme.
They also they show the horse costume in like a pretty clean view in that thing. And like the horse costume definitely works better when it's like obscured in the dark.
Oh yeah.
You know, like falling out of the bathroom stall, like you can't really tell what's going on. It's super creepy. But like when they show like the horses at the end, or is Forrest Whitaker the one?
Dude, I'm from East Oakland. Talk regular.
That's Forrest Whitaker
I think
in that
so.
scene, or is he
I'm not positive, but I think so.
Maybe he's both. He's credited as first Equisapien and Demarius.
Yeah, I don't know which one he is.
Either way, whenever the guy who's like, dude, I'm from East Oakland, like...
I think Demarius is that guy.
Yeah, they show him pretty cleanly in the light, too, and it just starts to look comical at that point.
Right, yeah.
It looks like a Halloween mask.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in the bathroom, it was legitimately creepy. And, like, the cell phone video of them being like, we're hurting in here. Like, pains me to watch that in the movie because it's that, like, uncomfortable. But it's, like, a source of humor later on. Like, when the horses are, like, fucking shit up at the rally.
Oh, yeah. That is, yeah. I don't know. The workhorse, the horse human thing... I think, again, it is kind of taking it to the extreme because we do start, it goes from satire to, like, it fucking kicks it up into extreme satire at some point because, you have Armie Hammer kind of treating, like, the people at Worry Free, they're pretty less than. They're treated pretty inhumane. And this is, like, this... It's not hard to read into like the future that Boots Riley is like presenting. Look at like the gig economy with like Uber drivers or even like people with the TaskRabbit app and everything. And like originally this is all presented as kind of like, oh, it's this free way of working, but it's actually like this really kind of just shitty way of corralling contractors into working without benefits. It's just essentially like this kind of like step backwards. And I think like he presents this very extreme vision of like what's kind of already happening like in front of our eyes. It's just kind of like, you watch like when I watch like the fucking or the Worry Free commercials or whatever, like, I mean, it's not that it's very believable that Cash wants to get involved with this. It's very believable that any of us who fall on like a hard time, who have like incredible amounts of like student debt or whatever, and like a really shitty economy would like kind of be like, I don't know, like, I guess I'll just sell myself to the workforce and like, like I won't have to worry about debt that much because they'll kind of like pay it off or whatever. It's also like, but it also looks like those fucking like short documentaries when you go on like a Bernie Sanders like Facebook page and it shows like the conditions of like people working at like an Amazon factory or something, or it's kind of like, I was in the army and I've never felt as stressed out as I did in the like Amazon warehouse. Like, it's just like, it's fucking like, I don't know. It's capitalism pushing the working class to enroll themselves into slavery. And that's what he's trying to get across, essentially. Yeah. And then, obviously, that satire goes to very extreme satire, which is the actual physical manifestation of, like, a workhorse, Yeah.
One of the, like, sort of more extreme or out there kind of, like, comedy bits that I did think really worked is when they did the, like, worry-free cribs. I don't know if it was just because it was like a throwback to like cribs or whatever, but it was just really funny to be like, yeah, and like this is where we hang out, and they're clearly just like a bunch of bunk beds crammed into one room, and it's like, this is where we eat, and like the one girl is like eating like the slop, and she's just kind of like It was like the one time the movie got absurdist and it was actually laugh out loud funny. The guy they picked that was doing like the this is Worry Free Christmas was really perfectly cast into. That was like one of the few times I like laughed out loud during this movie. The rest of it was just kind of like quirky,
right?
Kind of tongue in cheek, whatever. Oh, man. All right, you guys ready to get into some ratings for this movie?
Let's get into some ratings, yeah.
Let me wipe the tears from my eyes after that.
Forgot about that scene.
It just kind of comes out of nowhere. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 93% based on 260 reviews with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, "Fearlessly ambitious, scathingly funny, and thoroughly original. Sorry to bother you, loudly heralds the arrival of a fresh filmmaking talent in writer-director Boots Riley."
I'll go first.
I don't want to go first.
Okay. I do. I don't know. I love this kind of portrayal of modern era, capitalization and corporatization of the world, and commentary on American culture. One thing I wanted to talk about, it was just like how I don't know if I've ever seen like a film as accurately. I said this about a lot of things by now, like code switching and unions and labor and everything, but capitalism as well. I mean, again, Boots Riley's really putting in the work with this fucking film. Cash feels like he really does the work to show that Cash feels like he doesn't have a place in this world. He doesn't feel like he has any sort of impact in the world. He literally makes his own like little trophies to feel like he can feel like validated in everything. And then he finally gets a job. Not only gets a job, but then he gets a job that he's like good at. And even when the job gets like, increasingly like, shady, he's still happy because he's receiving all of this like different forms of validation, whether it's just, somebody who's in power over you being like, oh, good job, or, money, or, even fucking just drinking champagne, like something as simple as that. Even though he's like really trading in his identity and beliefs, it doesn't matter. And then it does. I think it has to take as extreme as a turn of seeing these people fucking turned into horses, or these half-breeds of horse humans, to be I don't know, presumably against their own will, to like kind of push him to this bridge and everything. I don't know. I love everything that happens with this movie. Again, one of my biggest complaints is that just the third act takes a little too long to get where it's going, and that's kind of a lot of where the unconventional kind of filmmaking that's kind of where it weighs down. Besides that, I love how original this film is. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, at least in theaters, maybe. It was just so bizarre to be watching this movie in theaters. It was just kind of, I don't know. It was just so strange. I don't know. I think people need this film. And I think that people need this film to be extreme and over-exaggerate and kind of hit the same points over and over again. Like I kind of mentioned before. I did say that I think this is still my favorite film of this year. I really love Roma as well, but I think this film is just so much more important. I'm gonna give it 4.5 fingers, just because, again, it's not a perfect film. It's been a really weird year for film. I don't think I gave anything 5 fingers, but nope. This is the closest I'll get, just because I think this film is incredibly important and incredibly unique. And I really enjoyed my time with this film. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. But I think it was maybe a little overhyped for me. I was definitely coming into this expecting to be blown away. And like everything that everyone said about it is definitely true. It has this very unique sense of style. It's punk rock. It's, relevant, and it's got all these like great messages and themes going on, and all that's true. But it just didn't totally hit home for me, especially on some of like the like specific artistic stuff, like people talking about like all this, like Lakeith Stanfield is like the performance of the year,
right? Yeah,
I'm like, I just don't see it. I don't know. I enjoyed it. But there's some things that I definitely have problems with. I wish this movie for its own sake would have been cleaner, just as a movie, and just with like the metaphors and the messages that it tries to get across, and just if it, would have been more willing to like kill some of his darlings. And I'm not as enchanted with the like first film sort of feeling that it has, because there's times where it like really made me cringe. Like I think the biggest scene is like the first scene in bed with Detroit and Cash, where like the scene opens with like, do you ever think about dying? And it's like, oh god, like, that's such a like college student like scene where like
I like that though. I feel like that kind of like goes hand in hand with, because I think he gets into like I don't think it takes the same about direction.
Dying is fine. I think it's a very like naive type of screenwriting to imagine that people start those conversations out of nowhere going, do you ever think about dying? That's just not the way people talk from anywhere. But that's the way that young screenwriters think people talk, because they want to get to these conversations so that their characters can express these ideals that will define them. That's why that scene takes place like as one of like the second or third or fourth scenes of the movie, so that we can learn things about these characters. But you just need to get into it from a more natural.
Oh, definitely, right.
I get like that. Have them talk about something else and death comes up, and then they're talking about it, rather than out of nowhere in bed just feel like, do you ever think about dying? I just like, because I've written that scene before. We all have. Like, it just, that was too like, it felt like a student film at that point to me. But it's definitely it's got expertise in many other areas. It's an incredibly well made movie. I'm gonna give it 3.5 fingers. The ending threw me a little bit. What? I wanted to like it more. It's still definitely one of my favorite movies of the year.
Right.
I haven't given a whole ton of movies, 3.5 or above this year. Right. It's been a real shitty year. I don't think I can go as high as a 4 on this. It's good. It's not as
4.5.
Yeah. You didn't give Moonlight a 5, Joe.
It's true. I'm allowed to go hard on the movies you like. You're not allowed to go.
Alex.
Who's going to be mom or dad?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I could add about this movie that I haven't already said. I love that it's original. It's very friggin' original and unique. I love a good dark comedy. This was a nice dark surreal comedy.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny throughout. Of course, very relevant right now. It got a little close to being preachy at times, but I think the fact that it was so absurd and over the top kind of saved it from that. I definitely have a few problems with it. Mostly the third act just got a little too bizarre too quickly, but other than that, I mean, overall, I really like the film. I think it's a flawed masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think it's a flawed masterpiece, and if this is Boots Riley's first film, I really hope he makes more.
Yeah.
Because once he works out the kinks and makes something less, as you keep saying, like with the interpretations being kind of muddy, I definitely agree with that. But once he writes a couple more scripts and makes a couple more films, I think he could really create something very special.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's about all I have to say about it. I'm gonna give it 4.
Nice.
What would you have given it? Because you said you liked it more the first time. Would you have gone 4.5 or 5?
I might have gone 4.5.
Yeah.
The second. I don't think I would have gone 5.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that'll obviously come out to 4 total for us here on the podcast. So Mom and Dad neither win. Little baby Alex wins.
Sorry to fuck it up.
He gets 2 Christmases.
I guess we split the weekends. Yeah. There was, I mean, I think Boots Riley was also like a first-time filmmaker, not expecting much, but like also kind of like whoever's distributing this, I think like Annapurna or whatever, was gonna make it kind of like have like a worldwide release, and then they did some like testing, and then they were like, you know what, like I think it'll just be released in this country because I don't think other countries would get it, kind of thing. And he was kind of angry and outspoken about that. Just kind of,
you don't think
like,
they'll get the call center stuff in India or like
right? Yeah,
China, or
and then
they're not working people to the bone in other countries.
right. It's almost more. Yeah. But yeah, just like he kind of was upset about what's it called? Black Klansman kind of being like the breakout film of, I don't know, it's hard to pit these two films against each other just because they're not super similar, but it was just kind of like once he saw that film getting like a lot of attention, he was just kind of like, I think that might be it for like my Oscar chances, you know, if they're gonna choose this, you know. The Academy only wants so many black movies, kind of thing, you know. I don't know. I think it's kind of like
wrong.
I don't know. We filled my I don't know. We got Black Panther, we got Beale Street, and we've got you know,
maybe
Black Klansman.
Maybe not even Beale Street.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh, we filled our quota, kind of thing.
Because Beale Street's gonna get replaced by Bohemian Rhapsody. Gotta nominate the pedophile.
Yeah. Oh, Rami Malek? No, I'm just kidding.
Hot take.
I'm kidding. I love Rami Malek.
All right. What do we got to plug? Anything going on with your dad's band?
Not right. Yeah, probably, but I don't know it.
He's got some stuff somewhere. Go to Sufjan's Label's website.
Yeah, go to Asthmatic Kitty. You can look up Dots Willico on Bandcamp.
Is he still on Asthmatic Kitty?
He only put out one album on Asthmatic Kitty, and then he put out a second album on Bandcamp a couple years ago. I actually like that one a little bit better.
Oh, nice.
But
nice.
Yeah, and my movie is called Hudson County, and I wish I could plug it more than that, but I don't have a website or a Facebook page to.
Well, when we have you on next year for another great Oscar or award season type movie, hopefully it'll be edited and out then.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Also, when you have a place to plug it, we'll plug it on all of our, you know, our outlets, our social media handles, and everything.
I absolutely appreciate that because I got no other place to plug it anyway.
Of course, yeah. So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
And for us, you can find everything at howmanyfingerspodcast.com. Check out the latest episode of Goldfingers, which is either episode 3, which is out now while we're recording this, or maybe I'll have it at episode 4, but we'll see because you know how that's going for me lately. And not sure when this is coming out, so either this Sunday, if you're listening to this the Thursday that comes out, where we're performing live in Philadelphia, or we performed live already last Sunday, and the recording should be going up soon, so look for that. But we're performing at the 2019 Everything is Awesome Headstrong Comedy Festival, hosted by Headstrong and Everything is Awesome. We're going to be performing Sunday the 27th at 3 p.m. at South Street Cinema, alongside a bunch of other great comedy podcasts, including Kid Flicks. Ross Wiseman's been on the podcast a few times. I think he's performing right after that. So check us out, or look for the recording if this ends up coming out after that. We're kind of juggling where this is going to end up being released. So yeah, definitely check that out. And that's about it. That's all I got, Dad. I'm sorry.
I'm real disappointed in you, son.
Just like I am in Sorry to Bother You.
Oh,
no, I still kind of liked it. It was pretty good. We'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.